Hey guys, it's Tom Bucks. Thanks for tuning into MST.TV. And the first bit, I would like to thank you guys for watching MST.TV. We've reached 60,000 subscribers plus, and I'm really happy about that. It's a milestone for me, and I didn't really think we would get anywhere close to this number when I started this channel. So thank you guys. Of course, I left a post with you guys about some fun facts about MST.TV. That's right. You guys didn't think that MST.TV stood for Monsters, Spells, Traps. That's what it is. And side note, yes, I posted that Denko image. It's actually not finished, that's why there's those floating gems still nearby, and it's not really polished, but that was the work in progress. Forgot to mention it, but I'm just telling you guys right now, because people are like criticizing the face a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, those are valid criticisms. I haven't really touched up on the face just yet. I'll get to there when I get there, because I still have to work on the other hand, the other sword, and the plates on the side. But that being said, let's get into today's video, which are rulings. So we're gonna start with a little bit of a misplay of the day, and then we'll go into everything you need to know about Accesscode Talker and a little bit about negated effects versus attack boosting. When do they keep their attack boost? When do they go away? When does it reset? We'll break it all down right now, but let's start with the misplay of the day. So the misplay of the day starts off with the Sky Striker player attempting to use a Widow Anchor against an Accesscode Talker without knowing the overall consequences of actually attempting the whole entire shebang. So I have a defensible block dragon and an Accesscode Talker at 4,300 attack points, and in the attempt for going for game in battle phase, I'm at like 16 or so, running over my block dragon basically secures game. So they go into the battle phase, use the Widow Anchor, take control of Accesscode Talker, only for it to drop back down to 2,300. And that's a pretty significant misplay since you just missed a game, and usually when you miss game with a block dragon on the field, you know what happens the next turn. Adamantibator, Ryzen, Dragite, the whole field gets blown apart and it's GG. Wasted Widow Anchor, missed game, just absolutely devastating. So you don't want to make that same misplay by knowing about how negated effects work against attack boost and, well, attack lost in general. So how would you know when does the attack modifier stay or when does it actually disperse after you get hit by a negation for the monster that activated it? Well, there's a rule of thumb here, which is how was it applied? Did it only apply to itself or did it apply to other monsters as well? If it only applied to itself, there's two scenarios here. You have your monster that activated once that had a permanent attack gain, or you have a monster that has a continuous effect that has a continuous attack gain based off of some sort of calculation. In the case where you only apply to yourself, if you do get negated, your attack modifier will go away. So for instance, Accesscode Talker. Accesscode Talker activated once during the Link Summon and it gained whatever attack times 1000, and if it gets negated, that attack boost will go back down. And it will go back down to its original stat, which will be 23. The attack stat is gone, and even after the negation expires, the attack gain will not come back because it only occurred at that one point. Whereas, say, a continuous monster, say Grand Magic, once it gets negated, obviously the attack stat will go to 0 because the modifier would no longer apply. But once the negation expires, then it gets its attack back because it's a continuous effect. The continuous effect will now reapply and give you that attack back. And to give you another example where it's not just about attack gain, Beast King Barbaros, on its own summon, it has an unclassified effect, which is basically a summoning condition where it lowers its own attack if you did not tribute a single monster. Then it'll be at 19. But if you negate its effect, basically its attack modifier has now been negated and boosted back to 3000, and even after that effect expires, since it only applied at that one time, it will now remain at 3000 after the attack, well, basically got negated, or the effect got negated. So that's kind of how it works for single monster application where it only applies to itself. But what happens when you apply to other monsters? Now, if the attack modifier affects other monsters, say we're going to use the example of Giga Brilliant and Gale the Whirlwind. Gale the Whirlwind, say, have the attack of a Stardust Dragon. If you negate the Gale after the fact, it doesn't do anything. Stardust's attack modifier is still being applied, and it's basically a permanent. Even if Gale leaves the field, Stardust is still halved regardless. And in the case of Giga Brilliant boosts the attack across the entire board. Boosts itself, boosts all the other monsters as well. In the case where it does get its effect negated, all the other monsters, they still keep all the attack, and same with the Giga Brilliant because of how it was applied. It applied to all the monsters across the field. So, long story short, this is kind of how attack modifiers work based off of monster effects and negation, and hopefully you guys don't make that misplay like the Sky Striker player. And onwards to Access Accesscode Talker and all you really need to know. So let's begin with a little bit of a card read, starting with it requires 2+ effect monsters to make, which is one of the easiest things to do. Second thing is, the key part about this monster is that, like most of the best monsters out there, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's effect's activation. This part of the effect is not really an effect, it's more like a condition. And if this card is Link Summon, target one Link monster that was used as material for Link Summon. This card gains attack equal to that Link rating times 1000, which is pretty big. You're guaranteed to get it to at least 33. And you can banish one Link monster from your graveyard or field and destroy one card your opponent controls. Also, for the rest of the turn, you cannot banish monsters with the same attribute to activate this effect of Accesscode Talker. So there's a lot of process here, so let's break it down. So for Accesscode Talker, the very first line is what makes it so powerful, because your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's effect's activation. Basically spell speed 4 the moment it happens, and it applies to both effects, the Link Summon attack gaining and also the banish to pop cards. That makes it basically a giant Dark Arm Dragon, and Dark Arm Dragon was limited for a reason back in the day. This one is just a more powerful, easy access version for everyone. And the first thing to note is, because you can arrange your chain links, if you have multiple things that activate because they got sent to the graveyard because you linked into it, then you should note that you can't really respond to those as long as they put Accesscode Talker as the top of the chain. The top of the chain meaning like chain link 1 something else, chain link 2 something else, chain link 3 Accesscode Talker. Your opponent cannot respond to any of the things activating in between, which is why it is naturally really good on its own, even with just the summoning effect. Second point to make is that since it can't respond, if you have a quirky way to use World Legacy Awakening, if you have that card, you use it during your own turn after your opponent sends some stuff to the graveyard that have grave triggers. When you summon out the Accesscode Talker, based off of simultaneous effect goes on chain, turn player gets their trigger effects first. So you arrange your trigger effects where Accesscode Talker is the last thing that trigger, so that say your opponent sent a Farfa to the graveyard when you activated your World Legacy Awakening. That Farfa can't even activate because you put Accesscode Talker as the last thing in the chain. So that's one quirky way of using it. Now, in terms of its overreaching effect, some people are just misplaying this card or just playing it illegally or just telling people misinformation, which is, oh, you can't negate it with impermanence. It's a pretty common phrase. Oh, and you can't Nibiru it on the summon. That's not exactly true, because there is a timing and you have to understand how fast effect timing works. And you should definitely check out that chart, because after a card effect resolves, it doesn't immediately jump into an open game state. There is the in response to something, you can activate something, and once you're in response to the resolution of a card, that is not in response to the card activation itself. And since it's not the card activation itself, you can respond. This is where you would throw an impermanence onto the Accesscode Talker to prevent it from popping your board and reducing its attack back down to 23. Note that even if its effects are negated, the very first line is technically not an effect. It's more or less a condition, really, so that you can't really respond to it. Even if it tries to activate, there's no response, it's not an effect. That's all we have to say. It was really hard to kind of word this together. And another note is, I guess you can also use Artifact Lancia against this card, so you can prevent it from banishing, since banishing cards would be a cost and they would not be able to pay that cost. That's one of its biggest limitation. And you can also activate that Artifact Lancia at that exact same timing where you would impermit. Upon the resolution of its attack gain, activate the card, you're good to go. Otherwise, you won't find the timing, and that's something that I want you guys to know very clearly of how it works. And that's Accesscode Talker for you guys. I guess if there's anything more to add, go ahead and leave a, ruling question down in the comment section below. I'm sure a lot of people would love to answer. I've got a lot of ruling guys that just love digging in the comment section. But that is all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell. Really appreciate you guys for hitting that sub button. And yeah, it's been really great talking to you guys. I got more content coming up, and yeah, I might eventually get into my collection. Well, we'll see. And I'll see you guys in the next one.